There are conflicting accounts about the first African American police officer in the United States. One account states that the first appointment of an African American police officer in the U.S. occurred in Washington, D.C. in 1867. Yet another account states that Wiley G. Overton was sworn in on March 6, 1891, as the first African American New York City police officer and is recognized as the first official African American police officer in the United States. In 1952, the city of Fort Lauderdale opened its doors to the first two African American police officers in the persons of Kermit McCoy and Richard Stebbin. Not much is known about these two men, but they paved the way for more African Americans to follow.
At the time that I joined, which was many, many years ago, the hardest part was getting on the police department because, first of all, the blacks felt that we were not wanted on the police department, in which, in a way, we weren't. Fort Lauderdale at that time had a reputation of only wanting 5 blacks on a department at one particular time. And it seemed like the only way you could get hired during that period of time was that if one black left, then they would hire another one. I took the test and I finally got accepted, but prior to that, I joined the reserve. And I found then that one of the issues with the white officers were that they did not trust the blacks. They felt that we as black officers would always say, "This is my side," at the time that they would need us, which was not necessarily true. But they should have also known that I felt the same way, that at the time that I needed the white officer, would that white officer show up? And in one particular incident I had where I got into a real serious fight, and I got on the radio, and it was my first encounter that I said I needed help, and it seemed like every policeman around the world showed up to me, and that was a great thing.
In 1963, detectives Doug Edward Evans and Ozzie Davenport were hired as police officers. When they were hired, it had been 7 years since an African American officer walked the halls of the department. Coming into the police department at age 19, Charmaine Gittins made history. She was the first female African American mounted unit member.
I was recruited by the officers I met as a teenager working at Winn-Dixie at Sunrise, Northwest 9th Avenue and Sunrise Boulevard. And they they wanted me to become an officer. And my perception of police officers and police work was not something that I was interested in. But I did accept the challenge to become a communications operator. After working there for less than a year, I realized that in fact was a job that I felt I could do. So I took the challenge at 19, took the tests and passed everything, and then I entered the academy at 19 years of age as the youngest person at the time actually in the academy. I don't know that I would really do anything different. I enjoyed my career. If there was a challenge, I took it. You know, as I mentioned earlier, I was the first black female on the mounted unit. I had only been on a horse once before. So yeah, there's nothing I don't think that would change.
Many have followed in the footsteps of the first African American officers, and on Thursday, May 29, 2008, Franklin C. Adderley became Fort Lauderdale's police chief, marking the first time in the city's 97-year history that an African American has held the position.
My mentors that really helped me develop into a good police officer, a sergeant, a captain, a major, assistant chief, and a chief, one of which is Doug Evans. I mean, Doug Evans at the time was the senior black police officer in the police department. Doug taught me the value of respecting people. The second individual was McKinley Smith. McKinley Smith was like the second senior police officer on the police department. And a short time after I came here, he, being the first black promoted to the rank of sergeant, was my sergeant. McKinley Smith definitely helped me in developing as a patrol officer. definitely helped me prepare myself in furthering my career here.
Understanding that community policing is key and is still as relevant today as it was in the early 1960s, the Sistrunk Police Substation was opened on January 26, 2014.
It is a fabulous partnership between the city of Fort Lauderdale and this community. To have the police officers here in this substation is going to be wonderful for our community. Public safety will be enhanced.
The City of Fort Lauderdale Police Department continues to embrace their seasons of change.